Hi, my name's Olivia from BCS, and I'm joined today by Nazra, who's recently completed a bootcamp course to get into tech. And in this discussion, we're going to be talking about Nazra's experience on the bootcamp, why she chose that route, and what it's like for her now working in tech. So thanks very much for joining me. If first of all, I could just ask you to briefly introduce yourself and which bootcamp course you did, and just tell us a little bit about the job you're doing now.
Okay, hi guys. So as Olivia mentioned, my name is Nazra. I graduated a long time ago with a BA in social science, which led me into the education sector, where I spent a few years teaching. I then settled down, had my children, and decided to become a stay-at-home mum. So there is a bit of a large gap in my employment history. At that time, I really started thinking about switching careers, and my brother, who is in tech himself, did kind of advise me to look into the industry and see if I can find something that would fit in with my skills and my work history. So at the beginning of this year, I found a boot camp with Just IT. It was the infrastructure boot camp, which is a 12-week program where we studied CompTIA A+, Office 365, and Windows. It was a full-time course, and at the end of it, we had the opportunity to interview with companies that were looking to hire graduates from the boot camp and give them their first entry into an IT role. So I currently work at Nuffield Foundation. I am an information systems administrator, and I support the foundations with its use of different systems and softwares and the AV system, and generally supporting the users who work at the company.
Awesome. And so when you were kind of considering going forward with a boot camp, what was the kind of deciding factor for you? What made you complete that registration, and how did you feel when you were doing that?
So for me, it was something that I had been toying with for a good few years, and I just never felt like I could commit to doing another degree or a master's. So when the government introduced the skills bootcamp, I felt it was a great opportunity for me to reskill myself, um, gain some industry recognized certifications and hands-on experience, and maybe land my first role in IT. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It was short enough where it wasn't going to impact my family life, and there was support regarding finding a job.
Awesome. And so you said you were working a little bit in education before the bootcamp. Tell us a little bit about your previous sort of work history before you enrolled in the bootcamp.
So I started off, when I graduated, I started off as a teaching assistant, and then I decided that I wanted to progress into teaching. So I started teaching in the UK. I then did something called a CELTA. Then I traveled to the Middle East, where I taught English as a second language for about 4 years, and then came back to the UK and taught again in a secondary school based in Middlesex. So nothing to do with IT. I didn't have a tech background. I didn't have any tech qualifications. I had basically nothing IT related.
And so in that case, then, with not very much sort of tech or IT related experience, tell us a bit about how you found the experience of the bootcamp, like the learning and the workload, and whether it was like how you expected it would be.
So I did my bootcamp, as I mentioned, with Just IT, and honestly, it was an amazing experience. The structure of the course was really good. Our instructor, Andy, who had the patience of a saint, was really amazing, because there were a few of us on the course that had never, we didn't have that background, but we had that personal interest. So from going to having a personal interest to structured lessons, it's a big jump. So at the beginning, it was difficult, and for myself, the hours were quite long. So I would be in lessons from 9 to 4. And then as soon as I close the laptop, I'd have to switch to mum mode. And then once the kids were in bed, I'd have to spend some of my evening just trying to fill in the gaps of what we learned. So I think it was challenging, but I also enjoyed the challenge because this is something that I really wanted to do. So for me, it's just a great opportunity, especially for women who are at home and have that gap in their employment history, and they have this fear that no one's going to employ me because I've been at home for X amount of years. I am not up to date with the world because I'm at home. So I think that the boot camp and the idea of it and the structure of it is really a great opportunity for women that are in my position.
Awesome. And then exactly like you said, having that sort of gap in the employment history. Tell us a bit about what it was like going through the process of securing a job after the boot camp.
So the trainers that I went with, they had a part of the boot camp was dedicated to career development, and we had an amazing coach. So we would do interview prep, we would do CV building, using things like LinkedIn to put ourselves out there. So I think that was a really vital part of the boot camp, just because you can learn and get those certificates, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to interview and successfully land a role. So I think the career element coupled with the actual learning of the content of the course it was a really good idea, and it works really well. So for myself, I started getting interviewed midway through my course. I found the process really good. So once we put our CVs out to the companies, they will decide if they wanted to go ahead with us. And for me, I didn't feel like companies really minded that I had that gap. It wasn't brought up in the interviews. It wasn't used against me. And I think a lot of women, that's something that they're scared of. They think it will be used against them, and it will make them maybe not reach the interview stage. But honestly, for me, it didn't cause any problems. I didn't feel like anyone had an issue. No one questioned it. I was very honest and put it in my CV and said I had a career break and this is what I was doing, and no one even mentioned it.
That's really good to hear. Thank you. And so now you're in your employment role, and tell us a bit about the types of stuff that you do in your role and what it's like.
So I'm really lucky because I work with a great company and they're really supportive, and I've got a great manager who understands that. Yes, I did come from a boot camp. Yes, I did have a few weeks of training, but I'm still very much at the beginning of my IT career. So I'm still learning. So I'm in a space where it's there's no pressure to get everything right. It's just do it at your own pace. So my main role consists of supporting the foundation with the uses of the different systems that they use, providing IT support to any of the staff members. They also have a lot of meetings, so I am in charge of making sure the AV systems that they use are working accordingly, and just general IT troubleshooting issues.
Awesome. And what would you see like as your next steps in developing your career? Do you have any idea for where you'd like to go with it?
This is the thing with IT. It's almost like information overload. There's so much out there, and it can be quite daunting. But I'm currently doing a introduction to data and SQL course with Code First Girls, and I'm really enjoying that at the moment. So that's something I picked up at the moment. Do I really know where I'm going? I don't know. I'm not certain. I think I just want to see what interests me and what I really enjoy. I'm currently loving my role at the moment. So yeah, no decisions yet, but I know that the future's good because there's so much out there, and it excites me, knowing that I've got so many options to choose from.
Oh, that's really cool to hear. And I guess, like, what advice, if someone's watching this now and they're considering doing a boot camp, or they're considering maybe changing their career and getting into tech, what sort of advice would you give someone in that position?
Go for it. That the one regret I have is not doing it sooner. It's just, for me, like I said, it's a no-brainer. It's a way into the industry that probably shortens the time that you would have taken if you'd gone to university and done the degree. If this is something that you're considering, do your research. There's so many providers out there. There's some great training companies. Choose one, have a conversation with them. Don't be afraid. And if you're a mum who's at home and is desperate for a career change but doesn't know how to start, then a bootcamp might be the way forward for you. It will be challenging, but it'll be so worth it at the end.
Oh, that's great advice. Thank you. And now we've connected through the link with BCS, and the BCS organisational mission is all about making IT good for society. So what does that sort of phrase mean to you?
I think for me, it's about accessibility. So everyone uses IT in their day-to-day life. It affects every part of our lives. I know that there's a drive to get more women into IT, but really the numbers are still very, very low. And there's a whole group of women that are forgotten about. So I think even with things like boot camps, I think they should also take into consideration that there are women that are at home taking care of kids, that are juggling, 2, 3 kids. So maybe the duration to studying every day from 9 to 5, that leaves out a whole group of women. That's not very accessible in my eyes. It's doable, however, it will put a lot of people off. So I think more needs to be done around the area of accessibility.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thank you. And what do you see as the sort of wider societal impact of, like, your role or yourself being in tech?
I think it's representation. I think it's good to see different types of people in these roles. It does give hope, or it does inspire others who maybe wouldn't have considered a role in this industry. I think that, it's something that is open to me. So yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Good, thank you. And lastly, I know that you're involved with BCS as a BCS member, so I just wanted to ask you about what you kind of like, or what makes you proud to be a BCS member.
I just love that it's just a great resource for me. So it's a way to keep up with what's happening in the industry. You've got the ability to gain further qualifications. You can even get a mentor on there, which is something that I'm currently looking at. I'm currently using the CPD part of the BSc website. So yeah, it's just the fact that it's just a great resource, especially for people, to be honest, I'd say anywhere in your career, but more so for people that are starting out. It's a way to really just keep up to date with what's happening.
That's great to hear. Thanks very much. Nazra, it's been really great to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time. I do genuinely think that anyone watching this who's considering a boot camp will find your message and your story really inspiring. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.